you've grown as a person to understand this is the task. How do I complete this task? Be very efficient at it and do it well versus like, oh, they're paying me by the hour. What do I care if it takes me 12 hours to move these 100 crates or if it takes me 3 hours? I'm going to take my sweet time. Mr. Parker, Enoch Parker, he's one of our great team members over at Johnson Security, who is a viewer and watcher, or whatever term we want to use.
And I think he hit the button to subscribe.
I think I would have to check. I don't know what his YouTube screen name is. All I know him by is Mr. Enoch Parker, but he probably has some like really cool.
Knox, probably like NOX.
Knocking off Fort Knox or something type screen name. Who knows? But we appreciate you, Mr. Parker. I would give a shout out also to Christopher Leon Johnson, one of our great fans out there who watches Commerce and Chill, follows us on social. Greatly appreciate your support. Also, Jay Fluke, also known as Jamie, my former student, back when I was a public school teacher who subscribes and follows us on Commerce and Chill. I see you blowing up the comments. Appreciate it. And also to Mike,
Blumenfeld,
who happens to be calling your phone actually while we're filming right now, which is awesome coincidence.
Oh my goodness, I just missed the FaceTime with Mike B.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So I just want to thank all three of you. We really appreciate you guys watching, your comments, your feedbacks, and thanks. So, Johnson, what's up?
So, the team has held us to task. And earlier in another episode, you said, yeah, people need to work at their jobs as if it were their business.
Yep.
So today we're going to talk about treating your job like your business. Where'd you like to start the conversation, Chief?
We could start in so many different places with that. But, you know, what kind of jobs did you have before you became an entrepreneur? Let's give a little context. Let's like take some steps back into the past.
Well, initially my first job was being an office flunky to my grandmother, making copies, answering phone calls, sending out mail for Johnson Security. And then I got a job working for a friend of the family in her fashion show production company. Audrey Smaltz and the ground crew. Shout out to the ground crew, still going hard. We used to work behind the scenes at designer fashion shows, especially during Fashion Week. We got to dress the models and arrange the clothes. It was really fun. Even though I'm not a big fashion person, to be behind the scenes and help bring everything together was a great memory and a great experience. I did work study in college. I worked in one of the professor's departmental offices, and I also... Well, then I got fired. I also worked for Sight and Sound, which was the audiovisual department for the university. Yeah, I wasn't really good at that, though. Those are some of the jobs I had. And I worked in sales. We can say I might have been okay at that, but I did get fired from one of my sales jobs because I didn't produce.
Whoa.
And, yeah, what else? Then I worked in research.
That's cool.
What about you?
Yeah, I've done probably quite a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. My first job that I can kind of remember, I'm almost positive this is like my first job that I worked independently. I did data entry at a nursing home for healthcare. And the computer was like so old school. Like it had an orange screen just with the flashing cursor and stuff. And you had to enter the data and we had to type in these patient sheets. It was so boring. But I appreciated the check and I did the job. Like it was just stacks of paper and they were like, yeah, just type these into the system. I was just like, you can't scan these, but you know, scanners weren't a thing back then. But I was just like, is there no way to scan? Like I guess I was kind of ahead of my time.
I'm going to go into my future and then come back in the past.
But you know, like when I was then, it was like a stack like this big or whatever. And then I was just like, there's no way to like, these could just be like, take a picture or something and like put it into the computer. But this was way back in the day.
What was your biggest takeaway from that job?
Scanners. Like the future needs to come fast.
Anything else that the people in Commerce and Chill Land can relate to?
I don't know. I can't say anything particular, but I do remember that job and I appreciate Miss Narcissus Fret Moses got that job for me. I will never forget that. But I did that. I worked the front desk when I was in college at the dorm. I was a cashier. I did stock in the supermarket. I worked at a construction company doing flooring. That was kind of crazy because I remember we had one job. We used to like do those high polished concrete floors, like when people get installed in places. This prison down in Maryland when I was living down here, freaking hired the company to do some work in the kitchen at the prison. And we get there, it's like 4 of us to go to do the job. And these dudes forget some of the equipment back at the shop. And they're like, oh, we had unloaded everything. And they were like, oh, Waleed, you stay here and watch this equipment while we go back to the shop and pick everything up. And I was like, am I getting punked or something? I was like, wait a minute, I got to stay. Like, we were in the prison, not like outside the prison. I was in the kitchen, like inmates is walking around. They're like, you stay here, watch the equipment, and we'll come back. And I was just like, oh, shit, I'm in a prison. So I was just like, okay. And it wasn't like they had to go like 10 minutes away. It was like a good little drive. So I stacked all the equipment in the corner and I sat on like a bucket of whatever the equipment was and put my back against the wall. And then I had a screwdriver in my hoodie and I just sat there and I was just like, oh my God. I mean, it was like, and people, some of the guys that would walk by, they'd be like, hey, you working here today? I'd be like, yeah. And they were cool. But, it's like, I was a kid. I was a kid. I was like, I'm in prison. Like, I didn't know nothing about prison. And so what I saw on TV, I was just like, yo, I just put a screwdriver in my pocket and I just sat there.
Let's bring it back a little bit. So based on those experiences,
prison experience. And I was a public school teacher too.
Oh, wow.
Don't say prison experience like I was in prison. I'm just saying, let's get that clear. Like, and when you guys edit this, you better not edit it so it seems like I said I was in prison.
We already get the positive nods from the team.
I was doing construction work.
So now that you're on the other side, a few years older, a tad bit wiser, what did you leverage from those job experiences in your entrepreneurial voyage?
I can't say I like one skill, but I did, pick up one thing from it. Mm-hmm. And I think it still carries over to today. And I like try to share it with people when I hear them talking about they want to leave their job and start a business. Mm-hmm. How you treat your current source of income, whether you call it a job or employment, whatever term you want to use, how you treat that is probably how you're going to treat your business. Mm-hmm. So 9 out of 10 times I'm willing to bet how you perform your work for your current employer or whatever term you use, you're going to do that same thing when it comes to you running your business.
Agreed. I had a financial advisor that used to tell me, Jess, whatever you don't respect will leave you, whether it's money, whether it's opportunity, whether it's a person in a relationship, whatever you don't respect will leave you. And what I found is that even in my past work experience and in some of what I see in our employees, if they don't respect the job, if they don't respect the responsibility, more so than a job, what they've been entrusted to do, that there'll be some type of disconnect and eventually they will work their way out of that job or work their way out of those responsibilities. So we know that there's some aspiring entrepreneurs who watch, as well as some established entrepreneurs who are looking to grow their business. I challenge you to tap into your professional experiences before you start your business and think about how you treated those jobs that prepared you or didn't prepare you for entrepreneurship. And if you're yet working, what adjustments can you make to better be prepared for entrepreneurship? So I'm not saying you have to give your job all of your time, but the time that you do spend working, give it 100% of your attention, give it 100% of your energy. Because when we as entrepreneurs come into different tasks and different roles, we don't have the luxury to half step. We don't have the luxury of not giving our all, because our employees, our clients, and our income, they all are tied into how well we perform.
I listen to and I watch team members, current and past, mm-hmm. and just people who talk in general, or they post stuff and you take that with a grain of salt. and they're like, oh yeah, my job sucks, bump it. I'm going to start my own business, this, that, and the third. But, and I get it. There are some cases where like where they're employed, it like totally sucks, and like they're giving 100%, and they're not respected on all these different things. I totally, and I'm not talking about those outliers. I'm just talking about the scenario where someone's like, yeah, I'm going to start my own business, but you can't wake up and get to work on time. You go to work and you can't get your projects completed because you're too busy, like, I don't know, surfing the internet when you're supposed to be working on a project, or you're too busy talking to your coworkers, at the water cooler or in the kitchen, or you take a 2-hour lunch breaks because you just whatever. And then you say to yourself, or you say to other people, like, yeah, it's because, this job is boring, or I'm overqualified for it, or they don't allow me to be creative, or allow me to spread my wings and take on more responsibility. There's no room for growth. So my thing is, if you're discouraged that easily by the place you currently work, what the hell are you going to think happens when you become an entrepreneur? Because listen, there's nobody to wake you up in the morning. There's nobody to make sure you meet the deadlines. There's no manager there to be like, Bobby, did you finish the report? No, you are Bobby. You have to finish the goddamn report yourself and hold yourself accountable. So if you can't hold yourself accountable when you have somebody standing over your shoulder, how the hell you think you're going to hold yourself accountable if you your own boss? Because you know what you're going to tell yourself? Oh, you could do that tomorrow. Don't worry about it, Bobby. You got tomorrow. You should relax today. Go play PS5. Go fire up the Xbox, or go hang out with your friends, or go spend 3 hours online, or post those photos you wanted to post on Instagram. There's nobody to hold you accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable. So yeah, I'll get off the soapbox right now.
Well, you make me think of two things, especially here in the security business. We often have people who come and either in the interview process or
I want growth.
They always say that.
I want to join a place where there's opportunity for growth. What is growth?
My last job, they wouldn't help me grow.
Explain to me what growth is, and I'll tell you if you could do that here. I can tell you if I can help you do that. But if you just come in the door telling me you want growth, what's the definition of growth? Like for you, because it's different for everybody else. Some people just want a place where they don't have to worry about they're not going to lose their job because of what's going on in the current economic climate. Or somebody was like, I want to move up and have more responsibility. I want to become a manager. What is growth to you?
Well, I was going to say, we have people that say, okay, I got promoted to manager at my last job after 2 weeks. And
2 weeks?
Why? Yes. And
sorry, I just blew out Espinosa's eardrums.
Typically, those are people who are good practitioners, but may not be extremely good at the administrative piece or in additional skill sets. And so I'm not going to poo-poo on those people. They're like, well, I got to work on time. I was always in my uniform. And I read the book. I knew what I had to do. That's a great foundation.
It's a start.
Showing up on time management is awesome. Being prepared for the role, having reviewed your information and knowing what that is, that's extremely helpful. Also, looking the part, having your uniform together. If you're not in a uniform type position, just making sure you have a look of confidence that people can trust that they can get what they need from you. Those are good. That's only the foundation. That's only the beginning, because ultimately you may have fiscal responsibilities. How are you with managing a budget? If you don't have those responsibilities in your current job, then maybe you should ask for additional responsibilities. Or if you are volunteering or involved in any outside activities, see if you can hone those skills there. So like when I was a junior high school student, a teenager, somebody volunteered me to be the treasurer for the junior usher board. At that age, finance was not my ministry. It was not my ministry at all. But I really didn't have a choice. I was kind of voluntold into the role. And you don't play with people's money at church, especially not with the ushers. You know, ushers do not play with people's money, in your Black Baptist church. But it taught me something about documenting finances, keeping track of money, asking questions, and being able to give an accounting to other people when it came to the finances of the organization. And those are some skills that have stuck with me through my various jobs and into being an entrepreneur. So understand,
So saying that, giving those examples from those positions, those jobs you had,
right?
do you feel a job can prepare someone to run a business or to start a business?
So I'm going to flip that. I'm not going to say that a job can prepare someone to own or run a business. I can say that people can use and leverage their job experiences to be better prepared to own and operate a business. So you have to take some of it upon yourself to know, understand, and acquire the skills that you will need in running a business. And understanding where the areas that you're not as strong, how do you get the support? Do you get a book? Do you take a class? Do you hire someone to fill the voids? Now, it's important that you understand how those different areas work, but it's still knowing what the gap is. And if you can early on fill that gap yourself, as you grow your business and you have more resources, how do you pay someone so that you can focus on the activities that are going to bring the greatest value and the greatest income into your business entity?
Okay, I guess you answered the question. I don't know, because you totally flipped it around. I'm like,
so how would you answer your own question? How does a job prepare you to own or run a business?
The job will prepare. I think it's twofold. Part of what you said, the job will prepare you because you can learn and acquire skills and experience doing that job, especially if you're doing a job at a business or in a field that you're interested in starting a business in. Right. I think we talked about this in other episodes. People was like, oh, like I want to start this type of business or whatever. What do you recommend? First thing I recommend is you go work in that business. Like find someone who has it and shadow them and go work in there. Like whatever. Like they're like, oh, I'm looking for a stock boy because in my store, and you want to open up a grocery store. Okay, can I do that job for you? Like, what are you paying? I'll take it. And go do that job and learn what goes on. Or like, oh, can I shadow you? Like, I'll help you do whatever in your business to shadow you, and then learn those skills. So if you have the job, it provides you with the experience and the skills and the let's not even forget the networking. Like you get to meet people in that industry that you want to start a business in, or you want to grow your business in. And then the other part of it is separating the job. It's the job prepares you to a certain extent with what I just talked about, but it also, the person prepares themselves by having the job to start a business. So you're like, what does that mean? You prepare yourself by having this job if you take that job 110% serious. If you're giving that job your all. And you're going to be like, oh, Waleed, my boss sucks. Like, I don't give a I'm talking about you, not the people around you. So if your job is to move 100 crates a day from one side of the room to the other, that you do it and you don't go in there with the mentality just to be like, I'm going to move these crates and I'm going to drag them across the floor. You take the approach like, okay, my job is to move these from this side of the room to this side of the room, 100 of them, and I have to have it done in 4 hours. Right. So maybe the first couple weeks, you're swinging and breaking your back and doing all this to move them. But then later on, you figure out what's a more efficient way that I can move them. Like, oh, wait a minute. Like when if we get a dolly, or when if we get one of those things, those things you jack up with the pallets and then you move it across the room. So you can move 10 or 15 or 20 at a time. And then you get it done in half the time. And then your employer, your boss is like, wow. Maybe they'll be like, wow, that was great work. And maybe they won't even acknowledge you. And you're like looking for a pat on the back because you did it in less time and it cost them less money. But you've grown as a person to understand this is the task. How do I complete this task? Be very efficient at it and do it well versus like, oh, they're paying me by the hour. What do I care if it takes me 12 hours to move these 100 crates or if it takes me 3 hours? I'm going to take my sweet time, blah, blah, blah. You look at it, how do I get this done efficiently, effectively, and well? And then you take the satisfaction out of that. Your own internal satisfaction and gratitude of completing that task, whether somebody thanks you or not. Because when you're in business for yourself, let me be clear, ain't nobody gonna freaking come thank you and pat you on your back, especially in the beginning. Maybe later on you become this great local, national, regional, or world-renowned entrepreneur and you're giving away money to all these charities and you're doing great things, they're going to be like, oh, you're great. But when you're first starting, it's just you in a dark room and maybe a couple team members because you've made the sacrifice to eat noodles every night because you want to hire people so you can grow your business. Yeah, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of thank yous and pats on the back in the beginning. Right. You got to thank yourself. So that's one way I think, the job will help prepare you.
I'll say this as we start to wrap up. According to Career Changes, the average person will change careers 5 to 7 times during their working life. With an ever-increasing number of career choices, 30% of the workforce today will change careers or jobs every 12 months. By the age of 42, some people may have already had about 10 jobs. So,
damn, 10 jobs by the time they're 42?
Yes. So think about it this way. If you have an entrepreneurial yearning,
that's a lot.
Maybe you don't have to switch jobs so many times. Maybe you settle for 1 or 2 jobs, get the requisite skills that you need, and then you make the leap into entrepreneurship, because what you're looking for, you're never going to find in somebody else's organization. You'll only find in yourself, in your own business. And keeping in mind that the workforce is changing, the job landscape is changing as a result of COVID.
It's crazy.
Some of those jobs are not going to come back.
There's going to be some new ones.
I encourage you, if you're tuning into Commerce and Chill, if you feel that bug, start taking the road down entrepreneurship now and see how it works. And then you can always reach out to us for insight, advice, and encouragement to help you along that journey. What would you like to add, Chief?
There's a lot to it, but I'm just going to reiterate the most important parts that I feel about this topic.
Okay.
If you go to work every day with the mindset that you are in business, that's your first step to success. And if you really boil it down and think about it, if you work at McDonald's, use that as an example, and you're the cashier, you're running your own business inside of McDonald's. You're an entrepreneur because your job is to make those transactions happen at that register correctly, efficiently, and with great service. And if you do that well, you receive a check. And some of you are probably going to be like, it doesn't matter, Waleed. Like I punch in, I punch out. They pay me per hour. Yes, it is true. But you receive that hourly wage on whatever regular basis you work because you perform those duties a certain way. And there's plenty of you who can relate to this out there. How many of you have worked at a place that's hourly, different job, or you know of people, and when something goes wrong or they don't do well, they get less hours the next week than they did the previous week because they didn't do something well. Not to say I agree with that management style, but there are places I hear people be like, oh, I had 32 hours this week and then something went wrong and they cut my hours the following week, right? So if you treat that job as an entrepreneur, you look at your job as an entrepreneur, you're building a business.
You're building a brand, and that brand
is you. Right? So now you bust your butt, you do well there, you've made connections, you become connected to people, you become connected to the customers on the other side. How many people, like how did Barbara Corcoran get her in, well, the story goes a little sideways, but when she was waitressing, she was a husband or the dude, he invested money into her to become the business for her to be open at the real estate firm, and then blah, 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 blah. I don't know the whole story, so don't quote it on me. But it was her brand when she was doing that. Or the situation with the book you're reading where the guy went and hired the waitress to come work at like his office, and he was selling like real estate or something because of the way she presented herself and her customer service skills as a waitress. Like, you don't understand that you are in business. You're building your brand. You're making connections. You're making your own network. So when you do make that transition, you can go back to those people, whether it's your former employer or the clients or whoever you interacted with there, and say, hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. How can we work? How can we grow together? Like you might start a business that can be a service provider or product provider to your current employer. Because while you're working there, you see a need, a gap in what they're doing. You build that and then you become connected to them and they become your client. Think about that, right? Here's a good example and I'm done. You treat it like it's yours. One of our team members who just recently started with us got deployed to a site. And we were given some information that they would be working in a particular location.
In a specific type of environment.
Right, like in an office setting. We get there to go check on him because it's his first day, the site starts, blah, blah, blah. And then we find out all of a sudden that the person has to spend a good amount of time outside and inside. So they're spending time outside, but then they go inside too. So when they got geared up for it, they were geared up for being inside. They had a blazer on, a suit, blah, 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 blah.
Look like money.
Right. Like got there and the people who worked there in the institution was like, that's the best uniform I've seen on a security guard in a long time. And we were like, thank you very much. And there's no credit to our uniform. It's credit to our team member on how they were wearing it and they had the proper fit and they were neat and well put together. But we found out the last minute that he would have to spend a significant amount of time outside that day. And we were like, oh, whatever. He did not have the proper winter gear, as Mr. Lee would say, because we issued him what it would be for inside. So word got back to our team here in the office about it. And they had an internal discussion, was like, we got to hurry up and get him like a JSB coat and a hat and all the other stuff so he could be warm. Mind you, one of our team members, who I will put on blast, who's also a viewer, thanks for subscribing, Miss Sampone, stops what she's doing, bags up the uniform as she gets it from Mr. Lee, hops on public transportation, and goes down to the site and gives it to them so they could put it on. And mind you, the person wasn't outside freezing and cold and everything. He was able to put his personal hat and coat on, but she was like, he needs to be warm and the brand needs to be represented. He should be in a full uniform because then if he walks up to somebody and talks to them, they're just going to see some dude in a hat and a regular coat and be like, who are you to tell me to follow the rules? Versus if he has on his uniform with the company name and they understand, oh, he's doing security. So she treated that moment as if it was her business because in a way it is. And she went out there and made sure that team member was taken care of. And her response was, we can't have our team members, something.
We take care of our team.
We take care of our team members.
We take care of our team.
So if you take care of your job 100%, whether you're going to be an entrepreneur or you're going to keep working there, your job will take care of you. And of course, those you're going to tell me, Waleed, my job and this, that, and the third. I'm not talking about those you working in some place where you don't like or you unfortunately, you work for somebody who doesn't respect you and treat you well. And, and if you're in one of our industries,
respect yourself.
If you're in that case, hit us up. I got jobs. I'm looking for good team members. We're taking this to the moon.
All right, Al, let's bring it back.
We're going to the moon. Wall Street's bets. We're going to the moon with this. All right. So that's my thoughts. Treat everything like it's yours. And then if you're the type of person who doesn't treat their personal stuff well, then treat it like it's not yours. I'm just saying, because there's some people like you go to their house and it's like whatever, but their work environment and other stuff, they treat very well. They respect other people's stuff. And then there's other people who treat their stuff well and treat other people's stuff well. Right. So just do that. Treat it as if it's your own. It is your job. Grow it, build it,